All right, welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, September 4th, 2019, and this is breaking as of 11 o'clock Eastern Time. We wanted to announce that Hurricane Dorian is not quite done. There was indication from earlier today that we possibly were going to see a little bit of weakening, but as Mari had pointed out to me earlier today as well, there was a little patch of warmer water that this storm has traveled over, and I will go ahead and actually bring that up to you guys real quick. I do believe Mari is talking about this red dot right here, that you can see it right before you get to South Carolina. So maybe there was a chance that this storm got a little fueled as well. Also want to throw it out there too, that space weather KP indice has risen to 4. So once again, and I'll check the solar wind speeds here just in a second, but I want to give an update on Hurricane Dorian. Right now it is upgraded to a Category 3 with winds of 115 miles per hour. The pressure is actually dropped since the 11 o'clock report was 955. It is now down to 954. So this storm is still strong. This storm is still of concern. Let's get right into the meat of the bone here, should we? There's our warnings and watches right now. Actually, I need to move that over. Mar.
I can do that for you.
Yeah, so let's go back to the other menu here, the SDO. Thank you. All right, so while we're getting that ready here, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about some space weather. Odd enough, yeah, there is a small patch of warmer water, but around the time that we saw the increase in hurricane strength, we got an alert for a KP indice of 4. And currently right now, we are experiencing just an uptick in KP indices, and solar wind speeds are moderate, 509 kilometers per second, a very thin solar wind as well, I want to add. AR, our last sunspot that we had, I think it was AR 2748, is now diminished. We are back to 0 sunspots. This is the first day without sunspots, 170 days in 2019. And all this solar weather, the solar storms and the solar wind that we've had on Earth's upper atmosphere is also reflecting that, with the TCI reading right now at 3.94. So we were flirting with record cold temps down to 3.03, and all this space weather, the solar wind speeds and the particles that's bombarded our planet has definitely heated it up a little bit in the upper atmosphere. Not a lot. Again, we're really cold. I mean, we're less than 2 away from breaking the space age record of TCI cold. So nothing to be crazy about or anything like that. So interesting correlation. Once again, I'm not saying that, KP4 is dangerous. It is one level away from a minor geomagnetic storm. The good news is that the density is pretty thin, 1.8. So the amount of particles that are being thrown at our planet right now, not very thick solar wind. So a KP4 is moderate, nothing crazy, all right? It's not even a cause of storm. But again, there's the correlation of what space weather does to the weather on here on Earth. And just at the right time, we see winds go up 5 miles an hour. The millibar, the pressure is dropping. It's down another millibar to 954. We've seen it as high as 960 or higher, but a slight strengthening. So what does that mean? And we've talked about this a couple nights ago, and I said that we were probably looking at a Cat 2, Cat 1 hurricane. And part of the reason why I thought that we were going to see a Cat 2 by now, or a Cat 1 even, I wasn't banking on any more space weather helping this storm grow, nor did I think that there was enough warm water here off the coast to actually make that happen. And let's switch some maps here. So let's take a look. There's the track. That's actually Gabrielle, and I'll get to that here in a minute. Yeah, these are all the tropical storms, and here's the cone for certainty. It's pretty wide, but it does look like if you live on the coast, you're going to see some, tropical force winds. Nothing
I
crazy.
think your windows, they resize that, it's all ballsed up now, Jake.
Oh, that's all right. We'll just switch over here real quick. What I do there, just hit that. All right. So again, the storm has actually sped up a little bit, and we've got it away from the U.S. by Saturday evening. I think we thought this might have been around for till Sunday or Monday.
I'm just gonna put it like that to make it easier.
That's fine. Appreciate it. But still, lots of wind. Not anything that we're experiencing right now. This is important too. The potential storm surge here. Let's see if I can zoom that in a little bit. So I know we talked about Charleston being a bullseye. I'm not so sure if we're actually going to see landfall there, but Charleston is getting its share of rain right now. And that is where the highest storm surge is going to be, is in that Charleston area. 5 to 8 feet of storm surge. Now, this storm is being called a triple threat because we are dealing with not only storm surge, but we're also dealing with tropical storm winds and flooding from rain as well. And the amount of rain that we could see in this area is up around the 10 to 15 inch range. Now, you've got 15 inches of rain slated to fall in this area here. North Carolina, I think South Carolina, Charleston area, and northward is going to get the most rain out of this storm. Parts of Cape Hatteras as well, North Carolina, but I think the majority of the heavier rain is going to be in South Carolina. Again, we were talking about a possible landfall of around, northern South Carolina, and it looks like we are going to be more, the landfall they're thinking now is somewhere around in this general area is where they could see the landfall. Right now, the eye of the storm is pretty close, but not quite there. So this is the new projected. If we see a landfall, this is where they think in this general area that we could see it. Right now, the storm is running 7 miles per hour, so it has slowed down 1 mile per hour, and it's going due north. So, again, another look at our hurricane tracker. Again, they're still calling this thing a hurricane even on Friday, all the way through Saturday. So this thing does not weaken to a tropical storm like we thought it would once it hits cooler waters. And I'll show you guys on the GFS as well what they think. Take a look at our current radar right now, and we are seeing, like I said, Charleston's getting the worst of this. Actually, this looks like an older. Yeah, let's update that real quick. Sorry, folks. And I don't think that's. So the storm moving north, and it's bearing down on the East Coast. Now, the good news out of all of this, I have to check the amounts of rain. Jacksonville, you are still getting rain, but the storm's eye definitely stayed further away than we thought. We actually thought it could have been a little closer. So here is a current look at Dorian as it is moving over that warmer area. And I'll point this out too. The area where Dorian is getting a little bit stronger, ironically, is on this side of the storm where we are seeing that patch of warm water. So right in here is where we have that rogue patch of warmer water, and you can see on the back side of this, or if it's moving north, and this is now the tail, I guess you would say, but where the warmer water is, you can see the intensity. Now watch what's happening up here in South Carolina. It's getting a little weaker, and it's going over land, so it's losing that energy, the warmth from the sea, obviously. So how long is this Cat 3 going to stand? I'm not going to make any predictions. But if this storm continues to move in this current direction, yes, it's going to be a rainmaker. Absolutely. We're going to deal with high tide tonight and again at 2 p.m. tomorrow in this same area. We're going to have close to 10 to 15 inches of rain. High winds, of course. So there's going to be power outages up and down the East Coast. But I think the worst of it is mainly going to be here in South Carolina and North Carolina, where they're going to be dealing with some flood. And basically what the Weather Channel I heard say earlier was that if you lived here for Matthew or Irma and you flooded then, you probably should leave. And I actually, I wouldn't advise it now. Hunker down, go to a shelter. They don't want people out on the roads with these heavy rain bands that are moving inland right now as we speak. So let's go ahead and take a look at GFS real quick. I think I showed, yeah, that was pretty much everything I wanted to show. Another look at the hurricane on the GOES satellite, just absolutely stunning. Seeing all the cloud structures moving around. But again, we're a Cat 3, and I say that lightly because it could be a very temporary Cat 3 storm, and we'll keep our eye, and maybe before we leave the air, we'll actually see whether or not, if this storm holds up as a Cat 3 for very long. All right, so here we are going in tomorrow morning. GFS has this storm a little bit behind. Actually, it's probably right on. Oh, it's almost midnight here on the East Coast. And we have Dorian make its way up the coast. The heaviest rain hitting South Carolina, the North Carolina state line. This GFS tracker has a little bit more heavier rain in the Cape Hatteras area as it makes its pass through on Friday, September 6th, and getting past the mid-Atlantic states with no coastal effects at this time. This storm is going to stay really close to the Northeast, New York City, Boston, all along the East Coast there in the Northeast, but we're not going to see another landfall at this point. According to the models, what we see, the only landfall that we see possible here is right along the North Carolina upper part of the northern part of North Carolina here, right by Cape Hatteras. That is the possibility of another landfall. Now, that could still be a Cat 2. We're about 24 hours away from the storm being in that location. So this storm is projected to be a Cat 2 all the way through Nova Scotia. And I think you guys can see it. I mean, 960 millibar pressure on Saturday in cooler waters here in the Northeast. All right. So Dorian will be off of our headlines, at least for the event anyway, on Sunday, September 8th. But the aftermath will begin to reveal itself along the coast. I suspect some areas will get minor damage. Some areas will get more than just minor damage. And hopefully everybody in South Carolina and North Carolina heeded the warnings and evacuated when they were told to evacuate. I think this storm was projected properly for the most part. I was impressed that the tracks did not go too far off of what they originally had thought in the first place. At first, we thought this thing was going to go across Florida, and then a couple days closer in, they got their act together, and pretty much the models said, look, this thing is going up the coast. We just don't know how close. And that's what's happening. So thankfully, the forecast, everything is staying on track as far as preventing any more mass damage or mass casualties possible. We're starting to get reports in now for the Bahamas. At least over 25 people, it's been reported, have died from this storm. Now, those are not official numbers yet, just some reports that are starting to come out. They're going to be in recovery mode for several days after some of the footage that I've seen. I'm sure Mario will have something together for us by the end of the week or something. We'll have a little collage of images from this current storm. So I'm fast forwarding through the GFS, and everybody noticed one thing that's not there, and that is that monster crazy storm that we thought that we saw in the 18Z a couple nights ago. This is where we thought we saw it, right here. So the good news is that we may not have to worry about the so-called Gabrielle, which everyone I've heard about has been warning about Gabrielle, how it's going to be a big dangerous storm, and we'll see. I mean, we're still way too far. Here's the 17th of September. Again, it's well way out, but I am seeing a little bit of development here in the Gulf. And with current water temperatures that we are experiencing right now for the Gulf, the other day I showed this, and it wasn't, the hell is it? There it goes. So the Gulf, getting some heat back into it. I know the other day I showed this, and half of the Gulf was just the regular orange. Now we're starting to see some blotchy areas of red. Of course, this is getting closer and closer to the fall equinox, so temperatures should be starting to cool down. So maybe by late September, when we see that little blob that pops up here at the end in the Gulf, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll put my little cursor thing on it right here is what I'm talking about. There's a possibility of a weak system here. Could be just a tropical depression, nothing major, but something we will monitor because the GFS is still trying to tell us there's going to be some kind of tropical activity happening somewhere around the Bahamas or the Gulf around the middle of September or later. Lots to keep track of, folks. Oh, and let's check temperatures really quick because I saw something today that I'm not quite sure how I feel about. This is the middle of the month, the 13th. The Northwest cooling off quite a bit. Daytime high temperatures, quite chilly across the middle of the United States. The lower part of the South, Florida, Southwest, and Ohio Valley, 80s and upper 70s as we move further into September. That heat is being pushed down. You guys can see that cooler air coming in from the Arctic. Canada is pushing it down to us. That heat follows even further down south on September 6th. Temperatures in the 70s closer to the coast, but look at this. Highs in the 50s in western New York, northern Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. We are getting closer to fall, so this isn't unusual. But the reason why I'm showing you this, we're getting 40s and 30s possibly here in the Northeast. There's a daytime highs here on Tuesday, September 17th, 57 degrees in Syracuse. The Northeast is cool. Very cool indeed. And then, of course, the Northwest, also a little on the cool side as well. But the Northeast, 60s and 70s. '60s and 70s, pretty much throughout the entire Northeast from the middle part of September, and even here at the end, Friday, September 20th, heat trying to make a comeback, but we see lots of 60s, lots of 70s, gorgeous weather across the United States. And with all that high pressure, and look at it, you talk about fall really being here. You got highs in the 50s this time of year. That's almost jacket weather. Lower 50s, high 40s, not that far away. So October, will we see daytime highs in the 40s in early October if this is what we're looking at? And the reason why I showed the pictures of the temperatures tonight, I saw an interesting development, and a respected person, I'm not going to call him out by name, but he does a good job on the blocks when he calls out the Greenland blocks and studies that. He thinks that we are going to see warmer temperatures in the Northeast of the United States somewhere around the middle part of the month and at the end. And I have to disagree with that. And I could be wrong because these models are still, a week and a half out. But right now, it looks like we're progressively cooling as we get closer to the middle of September, and cooling even more as we get into the end of September. And I announced on Twitter the other day about how the Roy Spencer's temperature anomaly, the UAH, came in at 0.38 above Celsius, 0.38 Celsius above baseline, and it didn't move from last month. So July and August were equal in global mean temperature. So we all know September, it's still cold in the southern hemisphere. Actually, the sudden stratospheric warming situation right now in the south could be causing a little bit crazier and wild winter weather to end out its winter season. So we could be getting some really cold readings in the southern hemisphere and a lot cooler readings in the northern hemisphere. Again, every time I try to make a guess about these temperatures, I'm always wrong on the UAH, but I have a feeling that we could see that temperature as far as the way September is looking. Yes, we have some warm weather on the way. I would say the United States, you're looking at your Indian summer at the beginning of September. Here we are on the 4th, and bring it out to the 5th, the deep south, Texas, Oklahoma. I mean, that's where all the heat is in the southwest. Everybody else has got gorgeous weather, 50s and 60s and 70s. And then right here on the 10th and the 11th, we see some warming to the 12th, 13th, and then we start to see things kind of, there's that contrast, that big line. There's a cold front coming in here on the 14th. So there's your warmer temperatures in the middle of the month, but they last for about 3 days. Here we are on the 17th. So not even 3 days. That heat gets all shoved back down in the south, southwest. The rest of the country is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful as far as the temperatures. We'll get to the forecast as far as what we're going to expect across the United States. I know Dorian has taken a lot of the headlines. A lot of farmers out there concerned with the heat that I just showed you, the lack of that we're going to have for September. We're 3 to 4 weeks behind on their crop. Anyway, harvest is going to be later October, early November, and we're already looking at, and yeah, we'll get wet again, but there's a couple of high pressure systems that are really keeping things dry and cool in the Northeast for the most part here on this GFS map. So we'll get our fair share of rain here and there, but really I think the story to watch right now, 2 stories, Dorian for one. Story number 2 is the middle part of this month and beyond. Are we going to watch temperatures continue to drop, or is this person on social media, who is right a lot of times, but is he going to predict this one right as well? Our temperature is going to shift and warm back up at the end of the month. That's something I'm going to watch, not just for myself, but for all the farmers across the country right now who are banking on Indian summer through October. And I get it. Anyone out there that is listening to this broadcast should also be rooting for warmer weather because of the state of the crops right now. We're behind. And each month I get a little bit more concerned as we get closer to fall about early freezes. And just seeing the temperature patterns right now, something could flip, but right now we are cooling like we should be at the end of the summer heading into fall. Things are kind of falling into place, and maybe even quicker. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. Again, the other hurricane that we showed a couple nights, that's gone. That's not on our radar anymore. But the one thing that I've learned, and this is the same goes for Dorian, what didn't show up the next day or the day after shows back up a couple days later. So we'll just have to keep watching the GFS. The 12 and the 18Z both are not showing this storm. So nothing to worry about as far as at this point. I'm not saying we're out of the woods, but this is the storm that everybody's watching next. And right now the track has got it going. They call it fishing because it's just going to spin around in the middle of Atlantic.
Saying no, baby, no.
Nah, baby, nah.
That's what Jake says.
That's what Jake says. Mari, would you like to say hello to everybody before we leave
be the peanut gallery?
Yeah, it's
Jake.
all right.
Everyone likes me as the peanut gallery, so I got to just do my job. I would like to thank Matt. Jake, don't look at me like that when I'm talking.
Yeah, blame it on me.
Oh, it's all your fault, Jake. I would like to thank Matt. He did a super chat. Why is he doing that?
Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
And Bob Sullivan, he said, keep up the great work, GSM.
Maybe Matt will be the first one to get the new beanie when we get it done.
You need me producing this live for you, Jake. I love it. Anyway.
I'm glad the camera's off.
We got it.
I love you, Mari.
In the chat wants to see Jake live on camera.
Good Lord.
For the rest of the live broadcast. I'm just joking, Jake.
Maybe someday.
I don't have it set up, so you get it out of jail.
You've got a lot going on here, so, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, almost a midnight update. So, we saw the storm developing.
Well, if you keep flapping your gums, I might be able to give a midnight update on the actual storm. So, and get your hand off my wall. Look what you've done. I love you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
Say goodnight, Jake.
No, I'm sorry. Keep going, Mari.
No,
come here. Come here. I love you.
It's okay.
Everybody loves you too.
You know what I'm going to do?
I just love messing with you.
Since you gave me a day off yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was able to look at things and reassess things. I just might have the live stream on tomorrow to cover.
That'd be cool.
This.
I think if the storm holds up into a 2 category overnight, I think it would be worthy. So I'm not against that idea. I would actually be okay with that.
And I might do little updates.
That'd be fine. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, listen, we've got a serious flooding issue and coastal problem that's going to happen here on South Carolina. So this by any means, we're not trying to make light of this storm. I mean, we are looking at a dangerous situation. But
it was breaking up, and I was worried. I saw that little hot patch of water, and I was like, I wonder if that's enough to just sort of kick it. And I saw the eye turning back into like a circular
that
pattern.
And space weather.
And then the space weather and the location of where the water is like, because I had a couple people, even Matt Bros, asked me earlier today, will this storm strengthen? I said, you know what? It looks like it might. And that was a few hours ago. So,
well,
anyway.
and I want to share this with everybody too. It's funny you said that because I actually texted Lee and asked him, I says, this thing's strengthening. And his words were, without a coronal hole fueling it like we saw in the Bahamas, it's unlikely to see this storm strengthen again. And then what happens? We get a KP of 4, solar winds are still in the 500 kilometers per second, and the storm increases by a little bit, but not a lot. But again, proving that solar space weather connection, because Lee's been pretty good about hurricane predictions. And when he said that, that made sense. Yeah, you're right. No space weather, it should be weakening, but pop, we got a little bit of space weather. And now the storm's strengthened just a little bit. So interesting correlation.
You know, another interesting correlation, not to drag this out longer, but I was following the Bahamas radio today, just listening, keeping updated. I know I'm supposed to have a day off, but I just, I put it down and I listened. And I saw a comment on Facebook from this gentleman who said that that island, was it Abaco?
Yep. Abaco.
That island got hit just the same way in the 1930s, or it was like the 1933 or 1932.
There was a 35, and then there was one really bad in 1939.
Well, this one apparently wasn't documented well.
Wow.
And I have to dig up some information on it, but apparently that same island was decimated like in the 1930s, which was around just coming out of what was the Dalton minimum almost.
Yep.
So interesting correlation. I'm not sure what the space weather was back then when it comes to cosmic rays and stuff. I'd have to do some digging and see what other things correlate, but I thought that was interesting that poor little island has been through that, and there was no good record of it. It's like the mystery storm.
So we are 105 miles away from South Charleston, in South Carolina, I should say. We are still Category 3 with winds of 115 miles per hour. The 12 a.m. update came out, and the only thing that changed was the pressure. We're now at 956 millibars. Other than that, everything's the same, Cat 3. So it'll be interesting to see how many hours this storm, and the crazy part, this is without the sun shining on this storm at this point. So without the energy of the sun, but the energy of the solar space weather is what's kept this thing afloat and strengthened it. There's no reason why a hurricane should strengthen when the sun goes down, other than space weather or really, really hot water. Other than that, again, the correlation is to be made, folks. Space weather, when it acts up, so does the weather here on Earth, and it's showing us right now as well. Taking up a lot of energy, I might say. That's going to do it for us tonight. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we will be live. I don't know at what time we will start the live stream, but it will be interesting to keep an eye on this storm. How close does it get to South Carolina? Will it even make landfall in North Carolina? Does this thing spin further away from the coast? Right now she's moving due north at 7 miles per hour, so we will keep our eyes on this, folks. Until then, we will talk soon. Take care, guys.